On today's hot sheet, I'm discussing last night's presidential debate as it relates to housing only, the latest CPI report, and mortgage applications. Today is Wednesday, September 11, 2024. I am Byron Lazine, and the hot sheet starts now. Good morning and welcome into today's hot sheet. We're going to get into the presidential debate here in just a minute, only as it relates to housing. So if you're looking for, other commentary on the debate, this would not be the live stream for you. We're just going to talk about how many times housing was mentioned, what specifically was mentioned, and the two candidates' plans moving forward. We also have a CPI report to go through, as well as mortgage applications. But first, if you want more time in your business, whether you're an agent, a lender, or anyone in the housing industry, you're trying to get time back and figure out how to scale with an investment that makes sense in today's climate. I'm doing a webinar today with Stacy Sutter. It's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern time, so 11 on the West Coast, 11 a.m. on the West Coast. Stacy Sutter is the CEO of Summit VA. It's a virtual assistant company I've been using for 6+ years. I have virtual assistants in both of my businesses. We're going to talk about how to hire, what makes sense to hire, how to implement that into your business, what the investment looks like, well, all of the questions that you may have about virtual assistants. If you've been hesitant on virtual assistants, this is a great opportunity. It's a free webinar. Again, BAM produced webinar today, 2:00. Bobby, if you could put the link into the live chat and also include it on the replay for anybody who wants to join us for that webinar. It won't be on the YouTube channel, so make sure you use the link if you want to get access to that. All right, let's get into the first topic here, last night's presidential debate. If you didn't watch it, then you won the debate. Okay. Just overall 90 minutes that you'll never get back. I did decide to watch it, just kind of wanted to see what was going on, obviously, between the two candidates, but more importantly, wanted to see where they, landed on housing. Headline housing part of the debate is just on pure mentions of housing. Kamala won that part. Donald Trump never mentioned housing. So former president, real estate guy, you would think that there would be some mention of housing. There really wasn't. Certainly there was a lot of economic talk mixed into the debate, and the economy and inflation do relate to everything that we're talking about. We're going to talk about inflation here in a second. We talk about it every single week. So those are important components, obviously, of the debate. But there was no specific mentions of housing. So by my records here, we have a Vice President Harris mention housing specifically 5.5 times, because there was a couple partial response. I guess I would give that 5.5 couple partial responses. If you have the hot sheet show notes, that means you're a BAMX member. We released the hot sheet show notes here. These are all the timestamps when housing was mentioned. So if you didn't watch the debate and you want to get access to that, we have all the timestamps from the video, as well as the transcript, as well as everything to break down in the CPI report. Just use code HOT to get into BAMX if you don't have that. So, there's early on in the debate, Kamala said, repeatedly, she wants to begin the night with issues that voters say is their number one issue: the economy and the cost of living in the country. Obviously, under her administration's term, the cost of living and the economy have gotten out of control for many. And so she does that or speaks to that by talking about small business. There was a lot of mention of small business, a lot of mention on getting some assistance for families that are starting a family in that first year, as well as a plan for bringing down the cost of housing. Okay. A couple of times in the debate, she mentioned the $25,000 assistance for first-time home buyers. Now, the other plan she had, and she only mentioned it once, she said, I have a plan to add 3 million homes by the end of my term to the inventory. Okay, the inventory, which if we just look at real estate inventory, which we do every single Monday, obviously real estate inventory, and we would trade 2017, 18, and 19 versus 2022, 23, and 24. Notice how I took out 20, the last year of former President Trump's term, and 21, the first year of the Biden-Harris administration term, because those were really impacted by the pandemic, right? But if you look at 17, 18, and 19, inventory was very normal, maybe leaning in some markets towards a seller's market, but not like it wasn't overwhelming. Maybe there was a few outliers where it was overwhelming, but it was much more of an even market, 17, 18, 19, compared to certainly 21, 22, or I'm sorry, 22, 23, and 24, right? 22 inventory got down to active inventory, the lowest level ever recorded. Last year, we saw the lowest level of new listings. People are stuck on the affordability issue and can't make a move. So there's a big comparison between, obviously, those two markets. But let's go to the 3 million, and I'm going to pull up a tweet, which I should have had pulled up before for you guys. But let's go to the plan that Harris, Vice President Harris, has mentioned in the past, which is, to utilize $25,000 down payment as a way to help first-time homebuyers afford homes. Okay, here is again, these are not political conversations. We're just trying to break down exactly what the plans are, or, there wasn't much clarity on the plans, by the way. If you watched it, there's just a lot of words, but as we dig into what we heard on the debate and what we've heard outside of the debate, we start to understand a little bit more if there is a plan or the likelihood of any of these plans coming to fruition on housing. So if you can take, I don't know why that's up, Bobby. If you take that off, I'm going to a tweet here. Thank you. Here we go. So this is Jason Calacanis, Silicon Valley investor. Jason Calacanis, you can see as @Jason on X. He's buddies with Elon. He's also a lifelong Democrat. So this isn't I'm trying to pick a tweet here that is not, based in some type of political view. Okay. So, he's somebody who's not in favor of former President Trump, is a better way to put it. All right. He says this proposal is dumb. Building new homes is all that matters. He's talking about the $25,000 first home buyer assistance. Building new homes requires lower regulations and, on the margins, creative ideas like building new cities, converting commercial spaces into residential, ADUs, factory-built homes. This is in response to when Vice President Harris announced the plan. Okay, even if aspiring homeowners save for years, it is often not enough. This is coming from the official X account of Vice President Harris. My administration will provide first-time homebuyers with $25,000 to help with the down payment on a new home. Jason Calacanis is not a real estate guy, but he's not the only person that has said this proposal will not work. There have been many others, many in the real estate ecosystem, who have pointed out that $25,000 for a first-time home buyers is only going to inflate home prices even further, right? We know we're going to have a lack of inventory. And so I agree that we have to focus on building. Now, the second proposal, there was no articulation in the debate of how that would get it done. There's obviously a lot of proponents that suggest you'll never be able to get 3 how are you going to impact 3 million homes being built by the end of your term? It's pretty hard if you had the plans in place right now today, to get through all the current regulation and red tape to get that many homes built by year 4. That would be a tall task if you had the plan already in motion. So there was no articulation on how that would actually come. So Bobby, if you wanted to go to that clip, I'm not sure which one you're even going to there, but you can go ahead and play that if you wanted to.
Sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers.
Yeah, I mean, where would that money come from? And by the way, that would be a flawed plan. It's interesting because these debates are often sound bites. There were no real depth of a plan. The interesting part about this election is that you rarely have this where you actually have two track records to compare. You have 3.5 years now with Vice President Harris administration, and then you had 4 years under former President Trump administration. And so in 2022 and in 2023, I have not heard anything from the Biden-Harris administration. Everything we did hear was like a suggestion to Congress, and those kind of ramped up in the last 12 to 18 months as we got closer to election cycle. But when in 2022, I'll just pull up the numbers here. So we're working with real numbers. At this point in 2022, when inventory hit the lowest ever recorded, okay, and every single Monday, if you miss Monday's hot sheets, we cover a lot of the inventory topics, but I'll just go back to it here. According to Altos Research, the all-time inventory bottom, it was in 2022 at 240,000 active units. Right now we're only sitting at 703,000. If you look at those years that I mentioned before, 2018, 19, 17, at this time we were at 900, almost 1 million active units, a much healthier place for buyers. It was a much healthier market for, buyers. It was a more predictable market, even probably for sellers. 240,000 all-time low on active listings in 2022. We never heard anything from either side of the aisle, but obviously there's one side of the aisle that's in position to maybe take some action. There was never any mention of housing. And so while I was disappointed that there was no mention of housing from former President Trump, he did point to his 4 years or whatever on what he did with inflation, what he did with the economy. But being a real estate guy from the start, I guess, if you want to call it that, I would have enjoyed more commentary specifically about housing, maybe pressing the plan, what $25,000 would do. There's been a lot of just down the middle housing analysts that said that will never work. And then building 3 million homes, how do we get it done? What is the plan? I'm again for more inventory, but I'm still unclear on how do we get to 3 million. there's been a lot of time, obviously, to mention housing, and that hasn't happened. So big takeaway is Vice President Harris used the buzzwords of housing and, multiple times. President Trump did not. There was obviously a deeper discussion about the economy and inflation, and that's where former President Trump spent the majority of his economic talk was on inflation and getting those prices back down. Speaking of inflation, let's jump into it. Inflation CPI report came out today. I was watching a little bit of Squawk Box and just seeing some of the initial 2 to 3 minute reactions as it came out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time as the report came out, and the report's loaded up into BAMX. It's a 38-page report. You can grab it, obviously. And so as I was taking a look at that, I was listening to some of the pundits' reactions, and the headline is CPI beat expectations. It was supposed to come in at 2.5% year over year inflation increase. We're at 2.4%. Inflation's heading in the right direction. This is 4 straight months of inflation heading in the right direction. This is great news. Okay. This speaks to potential soft landing for Jerome Powell. This could be a real big win for him. The pundits, though, were like, nobody can figure out why shelter won't move. In fact, one of them said, we're hearing from research across the country that rent prices are coming down, especially in places like Texas, especially in places like Florida. And we keep waiting for it to show up in the CPI, and it won't show up there. I don't know. Maybe he's watching the hot sheet. We've been talking about this for over a year. If you actually took inflation or owner's equivalent rent out, we'd already be at the 2% target or below on inflation. But the index for shelter rose again at the most 0.5% in August. It was the main factor for the all items increase. Owner's equivalent rent just will not move despite the real-time data that we have. Remember, owner's equivalent rent's been around since the 1980s. It's a proxy. It's a made-up number. It's a number that the Fed just refuses to get away from because they're going to have to change historical data. If the NFL can go from 16 to 17 game schedule, the Fed can get off of this made-up phony number that is owner's equivalent rent. It can happen. You guys can do it. I have faith in you. Just do it so we can get accurate readings. Here's what CPI, all items versus all items less energy and food, looks like. We are on downslope. The all items less food and energy came in at 3.2. That was as expected. So the 3.2 matches expectation. Again, shelter coming in at 0.5. We were at 0.4 last month. Unadjusted 12 months, we're at 5.2 on shelter. So way above where we're at in the overall here at 2.4. Just a huge number right now for shelter. And there's no reflection on the deceleration or even the downside on rents that is happening, especially in major markets where we've seen so much multifamily buildup. Shelter, again, makes up 36.392 on the weighting of this CPI report. That's why it's so significant when we get these high shelter readings. Only 7.6% of that is rent of primary residence. 26%, so over a quarter of this entire CPI report, 26.8, is owner's equivalent rent of residences. We've covered this before. Even Washington Post has covered this. Wall Street Journal was, I think, the first to really lay it all out there. This is a made-up survey we've been using since the 1980s, a survey with homeowners who don't have any intention of moving, who aren't in the business of renting property, and they come up with these numbers of, usually those consumers are not in the market, are going to be behind and are going to be lagging. And this data, to even Jerome Powell's credit, has been lagging for quite some time. Owner's equivalent comes in at 0.5, matching top line shelter at 0.5. New vehicles comes in down negative 0.2%. Apparel comes in negative 0.4%. So you're seeing a lot of numbers. That used cars and trucks down 2.3% here. or I'm sorry, down 0.1 or 1.0%, 2.3 last month. Apparel actually came in up at 0.3, just to correct that. New vehicles was flat from being down negative 0.2. Medical care services down negative 0.1. Transportation services up 0.9. So those are some of the key numbers there as we go through the report. Food came in up 0.1. It was up 0.2 last month. Energy comes in negative 0.8. And fuel oil actually coming in negative 1.9 after being up 0.9 last month. So there's your CPI report. The soft landing looks like it could be coming into, we go in and out of these phases where it's like, oh, this points more towards soft landing. The 10-year treasury is at a new 52-week low today, 3.646 on the 10-year. We did see it spike up. It was trending lower before this report, and it spiked up a little bit before coming back down on this CPI news. CME group now has a 85% chance that we're going to see a 1/4 point cut, not a 1/2 point cut, only 15% chance. This was at 70% before the CPI report. So that's the big news here, is that we're now all but certain, especially if PPI comes in this week, also trending in the right direction. It'll be a 1/4 point, not a 1/2 point cut. So 85% chance that we're going to see next week 1/4 point, not a 1/2 point, because CPI beat expectations. PPI, if comes in at expectations or below, plus we had last week's jobs data that came in, and unemployment went from 4.2 to 4.1. So these are all reasons here in the last 2 weeks that the Fed's going to come in and be conservative with the approach and go to a 1/4 point as opposed to a 1/2 point, which I still believe we need the 1/2 point, because there are a lot of underlying issues that we've uncovered here on the hot sheet multiple times. All right, mortgage application data. Okay, purchase index went up. That's the one that we care about. Purchase index increased 2% from 1 week earlier. This is only 3% lower than the same week 1 year ago. 3% lower. That's like the smallest gap we've seen year over year. So still less demand than last year, but that gap is getting short. Remember, we were talking about 10s and 12s seemingly all year. And now we're at just 3% from 1 year ago. We have a week over week increase in the purchase index. When you add refinances up, mortgage applications, and you add it into this number, mortgage application total came in at 1.4% higher from the same week. These were adjusted for the Labor Day holiday. So do keep that in mind. And here's the commentary from Mortgage Banker Association. Mortgage rates declined for the 6th consecutive week. I think it's an important piece of information to get out to buyers. And we're at the lowest level since February of 2023 on mortgage rates. And we're coming into a season when it just makes a lot of sense to be out there putting your best foot forward on negotiating with sellers. Okay, 6th consecutive week rates came down. The 30-year fix decreased to 6.29. It's the lowest rate since February 2023. Treasury yields have been responding to data showing a picture of cooling inflation, a slowing job market, and the anticipated first cut from the Fed. A lot of this is priced in, obviously. With rates almost a full percentage point lower than a year ago, refinance applications are running much higher. They're basically doubled up. There's limited refinance potential, though, as most borrowers have sub 5% rates. So there's not a huge category of homeowners that would be interested or would even be able to pull off a refinance. There's positive redevelopment that there are homeowners who can benefit from a refinance as rates continue to move lower. 30-year fix yesterday, that 6.29 number that was mentioned there in that report was a little bit lagging, obviously, as yesterday's daily number came in at 6.22. So 6.22 now, the lowest daily reading that we have available since February of 2023. Okay, there you go. There's your hot sheet for today. Hope you enjoyed that. BAMX members, you have all of the notes and charts available for you inside of BAMX. Use code HOT to get access to that. BAMX members, reminder, you also have 25% off your BAM Mania ticket for October 17th and 18th. 17th would be the VIP experience, 18th for general admission, both days obviously for VIP. Use bammania.com. Use that link to go secure your ticket today. BAMX members, you have 25% off on that. Reach out to us if you have any confusion on your personal code on getting in your 25% on BAM Mania. And if you want in today on the free webinar, use the link down below. Free webinar on how to hire and implement your virtual assistant. If you want more time back in your business, I will be hosting that webinar along with Stacy Sutter today at 2 p.m. Do not miss that if you've been thinking about virtual assistants in your business. Completely free, 2 p.m. Okay, have a great day, and we'll see you back here. Or I'll see you, some of you guys at 2 o'clock, I'm sure, and I'm looking forward to that. Until then, toodaloo.